The name of the shiur tonight is the difference between men and women for lighting Shabbos candles. And I have to thank a gentleman who's not here tonight, David Sonnenberg. He sent me a very innocent email. He said, my wife is out of town. She's on a business trip, and I'm or visiting with family. I don't remember which one it was. And I'm home with the kids for Shabbos, and I know I'm supposed to light. What am I supposed to do? So I said, step one, insert candles in candle holder. Step two, light match. Step three, make the bracha. Step four, light candles. Voila, you're done. Now, he was being very serious in his question. I was being a little flippant, because the seriousness of his question is that he sees this choreographed performance every time his wife lights Shabbos candles, with the hands and this and the tefillas and the tchinas and all of these other things. And I just said, no, there's nothing to it. But the reality is that there is a very significant difference that's brought in the poskim as to the pro forma method of how to light Shabbos candles, depending upon whether you're a man or you're a woman. What I described to him actually is the protocol for a man lighting Shabbos candles, but the protocol for a woman lighting Shabbos candles is actually halachically quite significantly different. And that's what we're going to examine tonight. So the first thing, we're not going to go deeply back into the Gemaras or into the Rishonim. We're just going to look at the halacha and then the responsa afterwards. The first stop is we're going to look at the Shulchan Aruch and Siman Reish Samech Gimel. And by the way, just as an aside, we recently had in the Daf Yomi in Perek Bamem Adlikin that one of the three mitzvahs that was specifically instituted by the sages for women is Hadlakas Haner, is lighting Shabbos candles. It's a very important tradition, and a woman, when she lights Shabbos candles, helps to rectify the original sin of Chava, and therefore it's important for women dafka to light Shabbos candles, and only when the wife of the home or the woman of the home is not available because she's away, does the man light. Furthermore, if a man is out of town, and it's the woman who's home, which is the more prevalent in our society, that's the more prevalent case, then the man does not need to light Shabbos candles, because since the matron of the home is lighting Shabbos candles in his home, he's pater from Hadlakas Haneros. The only time that a man would have a chiyuv of Hadlakas Haneros for Ner Shel Shabbos is if he's a bachelor, of course, or if he's home and his wife is away on a trip outside of the home.
Does the wife light in that case?
Well, that's a good shaila, but as long as the husband is home, then it's not necessary for the wife to light. She has reshus to light, but she's not mechuyev to light. Now, the Shulchan Aruch says, and this is in Siman Reish Samech Gimel, Sif, I believe it's Sif Dalet. I forgot to make note of the Sif. I think it's Sif Hey, if I'm not mistaken. Kishiyadlik Yivarech, that when the Machaber talks about what the nusach of the bracha is, Asher Kiddishanu b'mitzvosav v'tzivanu lahadlik ner shel Shabbos. You, Hashem, have commanded us to light Shabbos candles. And this, says the Machaber, is true echad ha'ish ve'echad ha'isha. So the Shulchan Aruch is both, addresses both genders. It's unisex. It doesn't make any distinction. And this will be consistent throughout our discussion in Shulchan Aruch. There's no distinction drawn between men and women in the Shulchan Aruch itself. And if we just skip to the Ramah in the Haggah, see that? It says, Yesh Misha Omer, Shemevorchin Kodam Hahadlaka. That the Ramah says that some people are of the opinion that you should light the Shabbos candles only after you make the bracha. In other words, make the bracha and then you light. V'yesh Misha Omer Shemevorech Achar Hahadlaka. And others are of the opinion that you should make the bracha only after you light. First you light and then you make the bracha. So now, the only problem, as far as why that is, the Ramah doesn't tell us here. We'll see the reason momentarily as to why it's important to make the bracha after you light. But there's a problem, because that's not the standard format of that kol habracha shata mavarech you over la'asiyasan. That anytime you make a bracha, the bracha has to precede the mitzvah, not to come after the mitzvah. So why then is it that when a woman lights Shabbos candles, or a person lights Shabbos candles, there's an advocacy for that person to make the bracha after lighting? So explains the Ramah. He says, "Uchadei shehe over la'asiyaso," in order to accomplish this principle of over la'asiyaso, that the bracha precedes the mitzvah, lo yehena mimena ad la'achar habracha. You should not benefit from the light of the candles until after the bracha. Umesimin hayad lifnei haner achar hadlako umevarchen. And therefore, what is standard protocol is to place your hand over the light. In other words, place an obstructing hand between your eyes and the light, then, so that you don't really benefit from the candlelight. Then you make the bracha, then you remove your hands, and voila, you're now benefiting after you've made the bracha. That's the reason for putting the hands over the face that you see your wives do, or putting their hands over the candles like that, is actually a halachic issue, not just some kind of touchy-feely ceremony, but rather there's a halachic imperative to do that in order that the woman not benefit from the candlelight until after she's actually made the bracha. Okay, that's what the Ramah says. And that's what's called over la'asiyaso, and that's the proper minhag, quoting from the Mahariwile. Now, I just should point out that the Maram Shik, Rav Moshe Shik of the 19th century, is very unhappy, and as are a number of poskim, they question this whole solution of making this over la'asiyaso. Because while it's true that you're only benefiting from the candlelight after you make the bracha, does that mean that the mitzvah is only done after the bracha? What is the mitzvah? What bracha did you make? Shech Rishon b'mitzvosav etzivanu lehanos meinero Shabbos. Is that the mitzvah, or is it lahadlik ner shel Shabbos? If the mitzvah is lahadlik ner shel Shabbos, then why is this still considered over la'asiyaso just because you're not benefiting from the candlelight? So it's really not so clear unless you argue that part and parcel of the mitzvah of hadlakas neros shel Shabbos, which I think is a legitimate argument, part and parcel of the mitzvah of hadlakas neros shel Shabbos is benefiting from the candlelight. And indeed, many poskim argue that if a woman were to light Shabbos candles and immediately leave the house afterwards and not benefit from them, then she has not fulfilled the mitzvah of hadlakas neros shel Shabbos, because the whole function of hadlakas neros shel Shabbos is that you do benefit. There's some light in the home that can provide benefit to the people who are residing in the home. One thing you see very clearly, therefore, is that the part of the mitzvah of hadlakas neros is that it's necessary to benefit from the light of the neros, otherwise you're really not doing anything. It's not just a ceremonial issue of lighting. Yes, Michael?
If it's a fully lit house, then how are you benefiting from the light?
Well, you have to be able to position the candles in such a way such that looking at them gives you pleasure.
Pleasure or benefit?
Pleasure, benefit, and for these purposes it's the same thing. For these purposes it's the same thing. You have to be able to look at it and say, I'm having some kind of hana'ah. The word hana'ah is the hana'ah means both pleasure and benefit. I'm deriving some kind of sense of well-being, or my endorphins are charged because I'm looking at the Shabbos candles. Okay? Now, again, this has practical nafkaminas. Let's say you get invited out for Shabbos, and you want to light Shabbos candles at home, right? This is a whole totally different discussion, not for tonight. It's not sufficient just to light Shabbos candles and run out of the house and go to your host. You have to be able to linger over Shabbos at some point and benefit from the Neir Shabbos. Let's go on.
Does anyone hold the other way to be tightened?
Yeah. You saw both minhagim in the Ramah. Yeah. We just started. We're 5 minutes into this year, and you're asking me, does anyone hold of this? 1 second.
Sorry.
Let's go. Okay, source number 2. Okay. Chidushay dinim v'hilchos l'Mahariwile, which is the quote from that the Ramah is making. He's quoting from the Mahariwile, the Maharil, and he says, "Mixas noshim nohagim shemadlikin haneros." The dikduk is interesting, isn't it? Mixas noshim nohagim shemadlikim haneros ve'achar kach misimin yedehem perusos neged haneros va'oz mevarchim ve'achar kach misalkim yedehem. That there's a minhag that many women have, that when they light Shabbos candles, then they place their hands over the candles, and then they make the bracha, and then they remove their hands Ha deporsim yedeyim ki hechid lihavi over lasiyasam v'lo ratzu levarch kodem hadlaka. And the reason he says why, now we get clarification from the Ramah. Why taka do these women why don't they just make the bracha before they light? The imkain kiblu hashabis v'lomatzu su la'adluke. The answer is because if so, then by making the bracha, they've automatically been makabel Shabbos. As soon as they make the bracha, they've been automatically makabel Shabbos. They've accepted Shabbos by saying lahadlik ner shel Shabbos. The word Shabbos, once they've said it, it's now Shabbos, and now I can't light anymore. So since I have this conundrum that I can't light once I've said the words lahadlik ner shel Shabbat, I have to first light and then only afterwards make the bracha. Okay? That's the reason. It's more clearly explained in the Magen Avraham. This is just a fascinating Magen Avraham. Magen Avraham in source number 3 on this halacha says, Achar hadlaka, to light after the lighting. He's quoting the Maharil. He says, Dim tevarech kibula Shabbos ba'asur lahadlik. Because if she would make the bracha first, then the recitation of the bracha is her acceptance of Shabbos, and now she can no longer light because you can't light candles on Shabbos. V'imkein, if that's the case, explains the Magen Avraham, then logic would dictate that b'yom tov tevarech v'achar kach tadlik. Then on Yom Tov the halacha will be different. On Yom Tov, where there's no concern of chilul Shabbos by lighting a candle, because you're allowed to light candles on Yom Tov, then taka you should fulfill the over la'asiyaso in the most optimal fashion, and therefore make the bracha first on Yom Tov and then light the candles. Ken Kosav V'Sov Sefer Hadrisha B'Shem Imo. And that's what, at the end of Sefer Hadrisha, we actually have it as the introduction to the Sefer Hadrisha that was written by Rav Yosef Falk, the son of the Drisha, who was Rav Yehoshua Falk. Rav Yehoshua Falk dies in the early 17th century. He writes a famous double commentary to the Torah called the Prisha and the Drisha, and to the Torah, and his son writes the Hakdama to his father's commentary of the Prisha and the Drisha. And in that commentary, which we're going to see momentarily, he quotes someone very important to him who says that a woman, when she lights candles for Yom Tov, should first make the bracha and then light. And says the Magen Avraham, Avol ein chachma leisha. But there's no wisdom to a woman, v'chulei. What is the Magen Avraham quoting? The Gemara says, ein chachma leisha ela plach, that there is no wisdom to a woman except for sewing, or weaving, or knitting. So therefore we do not accept the opinion of the mother of the author of the introduction to the Drisha, who was the wife, there was Mrs. Drisha, I guess Mrs. Falk, Mrs. Bela Falk, we'll see in just a second, who was the one who had innovated, who had given this chiddush, that on Yom Tov you should say the bracha first and then you light. And the Magen Avraham says, no, that's not correct. By the way that the Machatzis HaShekel understands the Magen Avraham's quote of that Gemara, Ein Chachma Leisha Ela Plach, if you take a look in source number 4, he says, Rod Salomer, Kol Hanoshim Lo Yedu Lechalek Bein Shabbat Liyom Tov. He says, not all women are going to be such chachamim to be able to distinguish between Shabbos and Yom Tov. And therefore, V'nomar B'Yom Tov Shetivarch V'Achar Kach Tadlik Tasagam Kein B'Shabbos. And therefore, if we advocate that a woman should first make a bracha and then light on Yom Tov, she'll do the same thing on Shabbos, and that'll become problematic. Okay. So
it's hard to accept when you consider her responsibilities for Yom Tov is so significantly different in terms of cooking.
Yeah. Well, okay, but they didn't have
that she'll cook on Shabbos.
They didn't have the Art Scroll Siddur, which gives you the very clear instructions. So maybe the concern is that not every woman is literate, as well educated as they are in the 20th and 21st century, and you're just going to get women confused because they're not going to know.
No, that argument makes the argument that a woman would actually cook on Shabbos too.
Okay, but perhaps that's something that's so distinct and clear that has been ingrained in the
match, so it could get confusing.
You can't strike the match.
On Yom
You have to think.
Well, no, but I'm saying, but maybe she's lighting right before Yontif. Right before Yontif, she's lighting.
Oh,
She might be on the first.
Second day, okay, so that's a separate issue. Okay. Anyway, he says the lo chilku chachamim, the chachamim make no chiluk, and then he quotes Kemoshe Kosafti, as I've written in Siman Kuf Nun Ches, the Chen Kosva Toisves Psachim Dav Zayin Amud Beis. He quotes something that he himself has written about in Siman Kuf Nun Ches, and he quotes the Toisves Psachim on Dav Zayin. So let's just take a look at the Machatzis HaShekel. As many of you know, Machatzis HaShekel is the super commentary to the Magen Avraham, who explains what the Magen Avraham says in his very terse method. So the Machatzis HaShekel, I apologize for the poor typeset, he says, Kemoshe Chasafti Siman Kuf Nun Ches, Dile'inyan over la'asiyasan asa'u chachamim lo plug. And what the Magen Avraham means is that in Siman Kuf Nun Ches, he discusses the brachos that you're supposed to make for various mitzvahs. And the Magen Avraham sets down a general rule that when it comes to the halacha of over la'asiyasa, that the chachamim generally make a low plug. They don't distinguish between different situations. So when a bracha has been instituted, that if there are certain instances where you're not able to make the bracha over la'asiyasa, then you never make the bracha over la'asiyasa. In other words, if there are certain situations where you need to do the act of the mitzvah before you do the bracha, for whatever reason, which we'll get to momentarily, then in all instances you have to make the bracha after you do the mitzvah. What are the examples? The besimin kuf nun chesif alav kasav de'ein levarich over la'asiyasan da'ainu kodem netila ela achar hanetila kodem haniguv. The example that's given over there is the mitzvah of netilas yadayim. That's what kuf nun ches is about, the mitzvah of netilas yadayim. And the halacha over there is that you're not allowed to make the bracha of al netilas yadayim until after you wash. So that's not over la'asiyasa, unless you say that drying your hands is part and parcel of the mitzvah of netilas yadayim. So why not just make the bracha before you wash in the first place? Answers the lefamim ein yadav nikiyos kegon sheyotza mibeis hakisei v'ef shel levarich kodem netila. The answer is that there are going to be certain situations where your hands are dirty. You just came out of the washroom, right? They didn't have perfected toilet paper systems back then, right? And so your hands are literally dirty after coming out of the washroom, and it's not respectful to make a bracha of al netilas yadayim before you wash your hands. And so therefore, lachein lo chilku va'afilu yadav nekiyos lo yavarach kodem hanetila mishum lo plug. He says, and for that reason, there's an across-the-board rule that in all situations, even when your hands are clean, let's say you're washing for hamotzi, and you know that your hands are already clean, we don't allow you to say, well, in situations where my hands are clean, I'll make a bracha and then I'll wash, and when my hands are not clean, I'll wash and make a bracha. No, we make a low plug across the board, and we say that whenever there's a possibility of not being able to make the bracha before the mitzvah, like in the netilas yadayim, you always make the bracha after the performance of the mitzvah. And we should argue the same thing over here, is that since there are certain instances where, like on Shabbos, where you cannot make the bracha before you light, because then it's already too late, you've already accepted Shabbos, then even on Yontif, when you could make the bracha before you light, because there's no violation of Yontif by lighting a candle, we also tell you there, no, make it after you do the mitzvah of hadlaka. Okay?
What about when a ger goes to the mikveh?
Oh, so that's the next case. Very good, Simi. The chen kasva atoistus b'psachim, demihai taima ein mevarchen al hatvila kodem l'tvila, shehiya over la'asiyasa mishum tfilas ger. He says it's the same principle as that when a woman goes to mikveh, she's supposed to make the bracha after she's done her initial immersion, and the reason is because of a tfilas ger, because when a ger converts to Judaism, and a woman, let's say, converts to Judaism by going to the mikveh, she can't make the bracha before immersing in the mikveh because she's not a Jew yet. And therefore she can only make the bracha after she does the immersion. And so therefore Chachamim made a low plug and said, because there are going to be instances of immersion in a mikveh where you can only make the bracha after Tvila, you always make the bracha of Tvila after immersion in the mikveh, even when the woman is going to alleviate her nida status. Okay, etc., etc., etc. So that's the way the Machatzis HaShekel explains what the Magen Avraham is referring to when he quotes his commentary in Kuf Nun Ches and he quotes Tosfos Simsachim. He's referring to those two cases where you clearly see that when it comes to the mitzvah of the principle of over lasiyaso, we make a low plug. We do not distinguish between different scenarios, and therefore any time when the bracha comes after the mitzvah, it comes after the mitzvah in all instances, and therefore over here for Shabbos and Yom Tov, the halacha should be the same. Now, before we see a refutation of the Magen Avraham, those who argue with the Magen Avraham and feel that the distinction is a valid distinction, let us take a look at the source that the Magen Avraham was quoting. Now, the reality is that in my opinion, this is the most fascinating part of the shiur, what we're about to see. This is not a halachic discussion which we're about to enter into. This is a heartwarming testimony and testament of a son to his mother, to his righteous mother. And this is the end of the Hakdama of Rav Yosef Falk to his deceased father's commentary, the Drisha and the Prisha. And in it, at the very end, he says, I cannot conclude my introduction to my father's Sefer without offering a testament to my mother as well. Because he viewed his mother, the Rebbitzin, as being part and parcel of everything that his father did. So it's a very, very touching introduction. Just take a look. He says, by the way, if you want to find this inside in the original, it's in the chelek of the first chelek of the tour of Yoredeya. It's in the introduction at the very beginning of the Sefer. Okay? So he says, V'latzor b'milin miyuchal, milahalos al ha-sefer ulasafer rov godol tiferes yikar, ma'alos ha'isha ha'chashuva ha'gevira ha'tznua v'ha'chasida v'ha'yeshara. He says, I cannot conclude before I talk a little bit about the virtues of this very important, powerful, modest, pious, upright woman. Halo hi imi morasi harabanit moras beila bas hakotzin v'hanadiv harav Yisrael idels zal. He says, my mother of blessed memory, Rebbitzin Beila, from the Idels family. Nafsha b'tzor hachayim surah, her soul is bound in the bond of eternal life. Imimenu Rivka Rachel v'Leah v'Sara, together with our holy matriarchs. Hamevia la'avi mori v'Rebbi Zal l'chol hakavod hazeh u'labala itra atara. That is because of my mother that my father attained all of his great glory, and she placed the crown on my father's head. She was always a support for all of my father's students to enable them to study Torah. And she therefore takes a share in all of their, or together with them she distributes her reward, because it wasn't only to us, her children, that belonged her great radiance and glory, but also to all of the students of my father. Rak l'chol b'nei dora, to all of the people of her generation. Yafa kalavana bara, she was as beautiful as the bright moon. U'l'chol b'nos Yisrael haisa tifara, and she was a great shining example for all daughters of Israel. Ra'uha banos vaya asheru ma'aseha hani'imim v'yakira, or v'yikara. That all of the daughters saw her and praised her wonderful ways. V'hidricha osan b'derech yeshara, and she guided and helped along. She gave guidance to people in the upright path. V'chein re'uya hilachlok lakavod ulahalos al hasefer ksas ma'aseha hatovim. Therefore, I just want to write a little bit about her righteous ways. L'hiyos lanu l'zecher l'doros, so that there should be an eternal memory of this righteous woman. And so that all daughters of Israel should learn from my mother and emulate her ways. That my mother was an only child to her parents. Her father apparently was a chashav of balabas, who was a provider for the community. And because she grew up in a privileged home, She had the opportunity to do whatever she wanted. She comes from a wealthy home, my mother. V'hilo astachein rak moasa nafsha b'tanugi olam hazeh uvachara tamid liknos la'atzma olam haba. But my mother did not do that. She eschewed the pleasures of this world and instead attached herself to olam haba. Lo zeh shelo biksha b'tanugi olam hazeh af gam zos shesagefa nafsha b'tanesim. Not only did she not seek out the pleasures, indulgences of this world, but she constantly afflicted herself by fasting. But once she got married, she wasn't able to continue along this pathway of asceticism. But for the 17 years after my father's petira, when she was an almana, she would fast regularly on a daily basis. And even when she broke her fast at night, she would not eat anything from a living animal, nor would she eat from fruit. She only ate those bare essentials that she needed in order to survive. On Shabbos, she would prepare very festive and delicious foods, but she herself would indulge very little of them, and she would instead share them with the aniyim, with the poor, and with the members of her household. Every day of the year, didn't matter whether it was winter or summer, she always awoke before dawn, several hours. V'hir basically hispalel b'kavana gedola b'tefilos v'tachanunim l'fnei hamakom baruch hu, and she would pray for several hours each day with prayers and supplications to Hashem. Uviyada mafteach ezras hanashim shahisa rishona miboy beis hakneses v'achrona sha'achas oshtayim acher yitzias ha'ami beis hakneses. She had the key to the shul's Ezras Nashim, and she was always the first one to arrive, and she would always leave an hour or two after everyone had left the shul. That's where she stayed. Shehigmira tfiloseha v'tachanuneha v'achar hatfila lo sam nafshel shum dvar batala rak michayel el chayel. And after davening, she would not engage in frivolous things, but she went from strength to strength. What did she do after davening? Osekes b'Torah, parsha shel yamei hashavu, and Pirush Rashi, Yishar Meforshim, ki yadu l'chol talmid avi mori v'Rebbe Zal me'ochlei shulchano. That as everyone who ever was in my father's home knew, my mother would spend the rest of her time studying the Parsha Shavua with Rashi's commentary. Shetamid asher hayu potrin ashulchan b'divrei Torah haisa ozeres kegever chalotzeha b'masu matan hadivrei Torah. That as everyone knows, whoever ate at my parents' Shabbos table, and whenever a bacher gave a Dvar Torah at the Shabbos table, my mother would also engage in the discussion, and she would also always offer her commentary and always argue with the bacher to make sure that he was saying the right Torah. And when it came to halacha, of the things that she had to know in order to be a frum woman, first of all, she always produced the most beautiful chidushim that were like sweet honey. And when it came to the halachas of what a woman needs to know, like hilchos nida and things like that, she was as wise and as well versed as any posek of our generation. Okay, so now what does this have to do with our story? He says, "Habitu na'oru es mashi hergisha b'tos hanashim b'hadlakasim haneros b'yom tov." Now we get to our discussion. He says, now I want you to realize what my mother saw about a serious error that women make when they light the candles for Yom Tov. V'ta'usan b'shtayim, and they make two mistakes. We're only going to observe the first mistake tonight. We're not going to read the second mistake. That'll take us too long. Ha'echad mashenogos lahadlik nera shel Yom Tov kemo shel Shabbos. The first mistake that women make is that they light the neros of Yom Tov just like they light the neros of Shabbos. Dahainu shemadlikin techila haneros, v'achar kach mesimin yedeim lefnei haneros u'mevarchen habracha al haneros. They light the candles and they put their hands over the candles and then they make the bracha and they do everything like Shabbos. V'achar kach mesalkin yedeim, what's that word? Kemo bakol kemo neros shel Shabbos. Right? Uminag zeh maybe Rabbi b'Shulchan Aruch Baruch Chaim Sim Reish Samach Gimel Sif Hey. The Ramah brings such a minute from the Maharil. V'chein kosav the Maharil. V'atam Hashem Yisimin Esidem L'fnei Haneros Kedei Sheyav Bracha over L'Asiyasa. The whole reason why women need to do this is to make sure that the bracha precedes the actual performance of the mitzvah, which is benefiting from the light. Ki plug to the Rav Vasahi in Kabbalah Shabbos Suli be'Havlakas Neros l'Shabbos in Lav u'Chamosh Kosav Hatur ba'Archaim Simin Reish Samach Gimel Simin Tov Reish Ayin Tes. There are many people who are of the opinion that as soon as she lights the candles, she's already been makabel Shabbos. And part and parcel of lighting the candles, according to one opinion, is the actual recitation of the bracha, and that's why a woman should always make the bracha before after she lights. The Alpha Pishan Aktin in Hilchasa the in Kapala Shabbos he bad lakas neros l'Shabbos k'mitzfilas arvis shemispalum rovat zibor. Even though we paskin not that way, and we paskin that you don't accept Shabbos until you actually daven Ma'ariv together with the congregation. He says uvahas chalas hachaz lomer baruch hu afilu shlo yispal adana kol arvis v'kodam hayochad yispal shel Shabbos mibod yom chalav Kabbalah Shabbos vasu b'malacha. Or if you didn't go to shul that night and you daven Ma'ariv before the tzibor, your Kabbalah Shabbos only takes place when you daven Ma'ariv, not when you light the Shabbos candles. He says, Mikol makom kasvu kama gedolim hagos maimenis l'chobo v'shibol eleket shedavka livnei bayis armin hachi. Avol lahamadlik atzma or lehaisha shemadlekas haneres l'Shabbos he asur lasos melacha achar sheidlicha. He says, but that's only true with the other members of the household who were not the ones lighting the Shabbos candles. But the person herself lighting the Shabbos candles accepts Shabbos upon the hadlaka, not upon the davening of the tzibur. The kivan de mevareches ein lecha kabbalah gedola mizu, and therefore once she makes the bracha of lahadlik ner shel Shabbos, that is in itself a declaration that it is now Shabbos, and therefore she can't light. Im lo shematna techila kodem shetadlik she'ena mekabel Shabbos at sheyomer hachazon baruch hu. He says, unless there are some poskim that we'll see if we have time tonight, we'll see in the Shulchan Aruch, there is the possibility of a person who's lighting the Shabbos candles to make a tanai, and he or she can say before he lights, I hereby am not accepting Shabbos or Yom Tov with this lighting, but instead only want to be makabel the Kedushas Hayom after when the tzibur is makabel Shabbos or makabel Yom Tov. When is this a prevalent minhag? This is most prevalent on Yom Kippur, because all the women go to shul for Kol Nidre, and therefore they have to light the candles before they go. So in this instance, this is the one time where we are generally lenient for women to do this, and we tell them, make a tanai, you light the candles here at home, make a tanai that you're not makabel. You have to say, we tell women to say explicitly, I'm not makabel until after I get to shul and the tzibur is makabel Yom Kedushas Yom Kippur, and then that will work. Gamba zeyesh plukta, but there's a machlokes, as we see in the poskim, that the Shulchan Aruch and the Magen Avraham say that a person should not make this tanai unless there's a great tzarech, unless there's a great need. He says, "Uchamosh shekosav beis Yosef of the Shulchan Aruch Siman Reish Samach Gimel shelo tola tanai l'mevarich atzmo." That according to many opinions, this tanai does not work, and therefore it's not a good thing to rely on unless there's a dire situation. V'haklal hayotze mizeh, and whatever the rule that we can derive from this is, me'achar shahamadlik atzmo makabel Shabbos b'birkas haneros, that since the person who's lighting accepts Shabbos with the blessing, nimsa im hayamavarch tchila kamo sheroi lios habracha over la'asiyasa asur shabla haneros, then by making the bracha you can't light anymore. Okay, nimshach mizaminik shemadlikin tchilo mesimin yadein lefnei haneros and mevarchin v'achakach misalkin yadein shebazanikra over la'asiyasan. So as we've just explained all along, that the purpose of placing the hands is to allow an over la'asiyasan situation, that you only benefit from the lights after you make the bracha. Hatenach, so this is the punchline. He says, Hatenach b'hadlakas haneros l'Shabbos. Sha'achar habracha asur shuv b'hadlaka. He says, I can understand that practice of first lighting, then covering, then making the bracha, then uncovering. That all makes sense on Shabbos because you're not allowed to light candles on Shabbos. Avol b'yom tov shemoter la'adlik aneros b'yom tov asmo mutav shenasa birkas aneros ketikuna lios abracha over lasi asmo la'adlik aneros shel yom tov kamo aneros shel Chanukah levarich techila v'achar kach la'adlik aneros bazeh achar zeh. He says, I don't understand. Why should it be any different from Neros Chanukah, Neros Yantiv? Do we tell a woman on Chanukah that first, if you're lighting a menorah, my daughter or my wife, that you should first light the candles and then make the bracha on the Neros of Chanukah? Of course not. There, everyone understands. You make the brachas on the Chanukah menorah, and then you light. So too on the Yantiv, you should do the same thing. We don't have time to read the second issue where his mother had commented on a mistake that the community or that women in generally make. He says, but he explains towards the end, he says, Lo haya bashum tzad gaiva v'yadav psucha b'tzedakah yosem michdei ercha, and she continues along to discuss her great piety, and I would strongly recommend that you read it through and become inspired. Actually, sit down and learn it with your wife or learn it with your daughter and really show them what a true tzadekis is all about. But in any event, the Magen Avraham disagrees. He says, Ein chachma le'isha elo plach. So the Magen Avraham is extremely dismissive of Mrs. or Rebbitzin Bela Falk's argument, which seems to be quite sound from a halachic standpoint. No, wouldn't you say? Magen Avraham says we make a low plug when it comes to issues of brachas that are over Lasiyasam. So let's take now a look at the Dogel Miravava from Rabbi Cheskel Landau, the famous Noda B'Yehuda of the 18th century. And let's see why he defends Rebbitzin Bela. Okay, let's see here how he defends Rebbitzin Bela Falk. So the Dogel Miravava says, Ulanias daiti hadin im imo shel hagas drisha. He says, I disagree with the Magen Avraham. I'm going to side with Rebbitzin Bela Falk. He says, "De biyom tov tevarech v'achar kach tadlik." That on Yom Tov she should make the bracha first, and then she should light. Uma shekosav Magen Avraham Raya mesimin kufnun ches medivrei hataisus b'sachim daf zayin beis lanias daiti ein hani doin doina. He says the analogies that the Magen Avraham made to Netilas Yadayim and to Tefillah b'mikvah, those are not good analogies. You know why? He says, the Sham b'simin kufnun ches shemavarchen miyad achar netila, mishum netila shachar yitzias beis hakisei. He says, I'll tell you why. The example that the Magen Avraham gave of where you make a low plug is for the bracha of al netilas yadayim. And since sometimes you need to wash your hands after you come out of the bathroom, and you need to make a bracha, like when you first wake up in the morning, and your hands are dirty, and you can't make a bracha before Netilas Yadayim, so you got to make the bracha afterwards, and therefore we make a low plug for all times of Netilas Yadayim, even when your hands are clean. He says, Sham nusach birchas netila shaveh. He says, that's different. That's different. It's clear that it's the same bracha of al Netilas Yadayim that you're making for the Netilas Yadayim that you make when you come out of the bathroom in the morning, and the bracha of Netilas Yadayim that you're making for washing for Hamotzi. And there I could understand making a low plug. But here you have two separate brachos, Lahadlik Ner Shel Shabbat versus Lahadlik Ner Shel Yom Tov. Two separate brachot, and therefore why do you need to make a low plug? And similarly he says, V'chein divrei atoisus v'psachim shemavarchem b'kol ha'tevilos Achar shetavol mishum tfilas ger, he says, Sham gamke nusach habracha shaveh, utfilas ger, ala tfila kamoshar kol chayove tfilos. He says the same thing is true by the example from Tosfos in Psachim about the immersion of a ger, where you can only make the bracha after the immersion because beforehand he's a non-Jew. So in that situation too, the bracha is the same. Asher kedishanu b'mitzvosav etzivano ala tvila. It's the same mitzvah, it's the same bracha that you make when you go to the mikvah when you're a nida, or when you go to mikvah to convert to Judaism. And therefore, I can understand making a low plug over there, making an across-the-board rule. L'kach mishum lo plug lo chilkum. Avo berchas hadlaka einusach bracha shad hadlakas ner Shabbos shavla nusach bracha shel ner Yom Tov. Al ner Shabbos mevarach lahadlik ner shel Shabbos, because on the bracha that you make for Shabbos candles, you make lahadlik ner shel Shabbat. Kemuvor kan b'shulchan aruch. Ksifei, Val Ner Shel Yom Tov, Nusach HaBracha L'Hadir Ner Shel Yom Tov, K'mavor Kan, B'Sof Siman Tav Kuf Yudal. V'lo Shayach Lo Plug. U'Ledevrei HaMagen Avram Tzarech Lomar, Shelo Plug B'Chol Birchas Hadlaka. The Magen Avram would say, no, it's still a low plug, because whatever bracha you make for lighting candles is across the board the same, even though there's a slight difference, but it's la'adlik ner. But he says, in Ken Kasha, Gam B'Hadlakas Ner Chanukah Yivarech Achar Shehidlik Mishum Lo Plug. Well, if that's the case, we say Lahadlik Ner Shel Chanukah, so why don't we make an across-the-board low plug over there, and make a rule that whenever you light the menorah, you have to light the candles first, put your hands over the Chanukah Neros, then say the bracha, and then get hana. Why don't you do that? Why don't you make a low plug by Neros Chanukah too? Right? So he says, Vadai lesa ki mevor b'simin tafresh ayin vav, ela vadai kivin shanusachu lahalik ner shel Chanukah, v'shel Shabbos kinusach halik ner shel Shabbos, lo shayach lo plugin, kein hu adin, to be yom tov gamkin, lo shayach lo plugin. V'chein nirli lahoros, and therefore he says, just like we don't make a low plug with Chanukah, we don't make a low plug with Yom Tov because the brachos are different. And therefore he concludes his tshuva by saying, V'chein nirli lahoros ke'eshes hagon drisha v'hi isha nisa'a liba b'chachma. And he says, contrary to the assertion of the Magen Avram that ein chachma le'isha, he says, I say, au contraire, this is a woman who had tremendous wisdom, and therefore she knew what she was talking about. So there is the background of this machlokes is charged with a certain kind of tension having to do with gender gaps. Okay? And it's just a very, very fascinating study, which probably is worth much more attention if we had the time.
If you're going to light the Yom Tov candles like that, I'm going to bring the same thing up again. You cannot strike the match, so at least you have to have the forethought to prepare a flame that's burning ahead of time so that you can light it from a pre-existing flame. So we have to think about it on Yom Tov.
You're talking about the second day of Yom Tov?
No, even the first day of Yom Tov.
First day of Yom Tov?
Once you say the bracha, it's Yom Tov. You can't strike the match. You have to have a pre-existing.
You have the light. The match has to be lit before you make the bracha.
Oh, so you light the match, then you say the bracha,
exactly.
then you light the candle.
Well, what do we do for Neiros Chanukah, Avi?
Right.
What do we do for Neiros Chanukah? The
shamash.
shamash has to be lit before you make the bracha. So the same thing we do on Yom Tov.
Okay.
But by the way, later on the Shulchan Aruch, you have it in your packet, which we probably won't get to tonight. The Shulchan Aruch says that if you hold that Kabbalah Shabbos is upon lighting, then you can't extinguish the match either. Right? And that's going to be a problem too. You just have to put the match down. You can't blow it out. Right? Because if the very first... And then the poskim also have another discussion. What if a woman lights multiple candles? The very first candle that she lit, if let's say the lighting itself is Kabbalah Shabbos, then how can it be that she can light multiple candles after the first candle? It's already Shabbos. So the poskim say that if she has a normal number of candles that she normally lights, this is brought down in Shemer Shabbos Geilchasa, then it's implicit that she knows that she's not Makabel Shabbos until she finishes lighting the last candle, and then she should put her hands over the candles. This is Friday night, and then she makes the bracha. But in Al-Chinami, she cannot extinguish the match. She has to let the match burn out. Let's say a woman had only planned to light 2 candles, and after she lights the first candle, someone comes along and says, I have extra candles you can light for all your children now, because she thought, let's say she only had 2 candles. No, she can't light those extra candles because she didn't have it in mind when she started lighting. That would be an important nafkamina based on what you're arguing. We didn't copy it here for you, but the Chassam Sofer on the daf in the Shulchan Aruch has the similar defense of Rebbetzin Bela Falk as the Dagul Mirvava, and you can take a look at that on your own in Simrei Samach Gimel in the Shulchan Aruch. And the Maram Shik over here defends the Magen Avram. He takes the Magen Avram side, and he says, no, the Magen Avram is Geret, that you have to make a low plug, and women don't know what they're doing. And if you tell a woman to light one way on Yom Tov and one way on Shabbos, they're going to get confused. What about the Dagul Mirvava's argument from Neiros Chanukah? He says there's no tzushta. He says there's no connection to Neiros Chanukah. He says the issue is that what happens when Shabbos and Yom Tov coincide? then you're lighting candles for both Shabbos and Yontif. And what bracha do you make? Lahadlik ner shel Shabbos v'Yontif. That's where you're going to drive a woman crazy. She's not going to know what to do. I don't know. Is it Shabbos? Is it Yontif? It's both. Do I light before I make a bracha? Do I light after I make a bracha? She's going to get so famished you because you're driving her crazy. He says, by Neiros Chanukah, there's no confusion because even when Shabbos and Chanukah coincide, it's two different sets of Neiros. So therefore, there's no confusion. She'll light the Shabbos candles the Shabbos way. She'll light the Neiros Chanukah the Chanukah way. She'll make two separate brachot, and it won't be a problem. But because when it comes to Shabbos and Yontif coinciding, she's got to make one bracha for both, that's what's going to be confusing. And that's why the Magen Avraham says you have to make a low floor. But the Maram Shik still says, but the whole concept, he says, I don't understand, because the bracha is lahadlik. So how can being nehene, how can benefiting from the light of the candles be a performance of the word lahadlik? The word of the bracha is the action lahadlik. I didn't copy the whole tshuva from Maram Shik, but if you want to see it inside, it's Maram Shik, Siman Kuf Yud Tes, and the Shalos Tshuva is Maram Shik by Rav Moshe Shik. And you can take a look at the whole, he's very, very disturbed by this whole practice. He doesn't really feel that it's an appropriate practice and would like to abolish it. By the way, Rav Ovadia Yosef holds, this is only an Ashkenazi practice, Rav Ovadia says. By Sephardi women, he feels that Sephardi women should do the other way that is advocated, which is to first make the bracha and then to light. This whole concept comes from the Ashkenazim, the Maharil, and therefore he's not happy with the whole thing to begin with. Okay? This whole concept that a woman is makabel Shabbos as soon as she says the bracha is very bizarre when you think about it. And we're going to see that in just a second.
When you said that Ram Shik wanted to get rid of the minhag, what does his wife do?
Those are two different things. Those are two. What a rabbi wants to paskin and what his wife ends up doing. If you ever lived in a rabbi's home, you would know that those are two completely separate things that have absolutely nothing to do with each other.
I visited. I never lived there.
All right. Before I go to the Aruch HaShulchan, take a look at the at Rav Avraham Chaim Noah, which he wrote a sefer called the Ksos HaShulchan. And on the Ksos HaShulchan, where he codifies Hilchos Shabbos and other halachas of Shulchan Aruch, he writes a commentary called Badei HaShulchan. It's source number 11 in your handout. And he writes as follows. He says, I don't understand the minhag of this whole concept or this whole idea that a woman is makabel Shabbos immediately upon making the bracha. He says, it doesn't make sense to me. He says, Sefer Shnos Chaim Kasavnu Litmoa. He says, in another sefer, I asked the kasha. He says, De'echnu chalomar de bracha shekodem hadlaka te'echashuva kabbalah Shabbos. He says, how can you possibly suggest that as soon as she makes the bracha lahadlik ner shel Shabbos, she's accepted Shabbos? Utehei asura lahadlik. And that now she's going to be usher to make the bracha, to light. He says, D'imken al ma koya bracha. He says, well, if that's the case, then how could she make the bracha? How can you make a bracha on an act that is forbidden for you to do? He says, V'gam harei b'da'ata lahadlik. Utanai mahani afi palev. Shegam hadlaka lo tehei kabbalah Shabbos. He says, if she knows that she's about to light candles, when she makes the bracha, then clearly it's as if she's making a tanai. She's making a mental note of the fact that she's not makabel Shabbos until after she lights. That's what she's implicit in the very act of making the bracha. Rabbi Kiva Eger asks the same kasha in a very similar way. He says, "Ulechomer hakushya." He says, based upon this, I pashut don't understand the whole svara of the Maharil. That you're telling me that a woman simply by saying the word Shabbos in the bracha has already been makabel Shabbos, even when she knows she has to still light the candle? How can such a thing be? Is a woman so feeble-minded that just because she said the word Shabbos, automatically it's Shabbos for her? Doesn't seem to make any sense. She knows she's got a light. So he says, Ulechomer hakushya ef shalomar. He says, perhaps we could argue, L'pishahayu Noah goes lahadlik shar neros mikodim below bracha. He says, perhaps the origin of this custom was based upon the fact that back in the day, before the electric light bulb, people used to have to light all the candles of the household, when it was starting to get dark. You did that on a nightly basis, and you didn't make a bracha when you lit the lamps in the house. So what the issue over here is that you had a woman who on Friday afternoon was walking around the house routinely, like she does every evening, lighting the lamps and the lanterns throughout the household, and there's no bracha, obviously, because it's not Ner Shel Shabbos. V'achar kach hayu madlikos hanero shel hashulchan ba'acharona shehein ikar hamitzvah. And at the very end, after she went through the whole house, lighting the candelabras, lighting the lanterns, etc., then she would have a special candelabrum on the Shabbos table, which was for Ner Shabbos. And she would save that for the end. Uvazeh svirle she'im tivarech techila tehechala habracha al shar hanerot shebabaya she'liku kvar. He says that the Maharil held that if you tell her to make a bracha before she lights the Shabbos candles, then her bracha, what she's mentally thinking about when she says Lahadlik Ner Shel Shabbos, she may be thinking about all of the other candelabras and lanterns that she's already lit in the house, which she's now doing L'Kavod Shabbos. V'habracha shemivareches tehei Kabbalah Shabbos u'tehei asura lahadlik haner shal hashulchan. So she's thinking to herself, my bracha is going on all of the lights, the candles that I've already lit in the house to make sure that there's light in the house. So therefore, maybe that in that situation, back in the day when people had to light the candles throughout the house, that's why the Maharil felt that you couldn't make the bracha before you light the Ner Shabbos. And even though it's true that she has in mind that she still plans to light these candles that are on the table, Chachamim did not want to rely on that kind of mental stipulation, as there are poskim who hold that a tanai does not have efficacy, that you're not allowed to make a tanai once you're lighting the candles. Okay, nagu tamid levarich b'gemar hadlakas kol haneros, and that's why it says Avraham Chaim Noah that the Maharil instituted and the Rama instituted the minhag to light only after only the light before you make the bracha. The bracha completes all of the candles that you lit in the house, so that there shouldn't be any confusion. That's the argument he wants to make, which of course, according to our minhag, would not be an issue. According to the svara of Rav Noah, that svara would not hold water in a technology age of ours where we turn on the lights before Shabbos. We don't light candles before Shabbos. All right. I have difficulty with this. I also have difficulty. I have to tell you that I don't have peace of mind over this halacha. I really don't. And I especially don't have peace of mind over this halacha. I mean, I'm confessing to you, as chata'ai ani mazkir hayom, that I don't feel a sense of calm after going through these halachas. I don't feel that I have resolution when I look at these halachas. Because essentially, take a look at the Aruch HaShulchan in source number 8. In Sif Yud Gimel, the Aruch HaShulchan writes, he discusses the minhag of the Maharil of the Ramah. He says, V'taimo shel davar, in line 2, he says the reason why women have to make the bracha only after they light is mishum dehadlakas neros havi etzlam kabbalas tosefes Shabbos. He says because for them, lighting the candles is an acceptance of now accepting Shabbos upon themselves. The ikar hakabbalah havi habracha, and the main kabbalah of Shabbos takes place when they make the bracha. Kamo sheisboyer lefizeh im tevarich usekabel Shabbos eich muteres bahadlaka. If she's going to make the bracha, she'll be accepting Shabbos. How can she light afterwards? Even though it's possible for a woman to make the bracha and make a mental note of the fact that she's not accepting Shabbos until after she lights, and I underline that because it's just very disturbing, the language. He says, nevertheless, since women are not in the habit of doing this, and their minds are too feeble to be able to understand how to do this, we therefore tell them, just go ahead and light the candles before you make a bracha. Now, By contrast, in the following paragraph, or later on in that very same paragraph in Sif Yud Gimel, the Aruch HaShulchan says, he says, "Umikol makom ish k'shemivarich be'erev Shabbos mivarich kodem ha'adlaka u'mechavein shelo lekabel Shabbos." But a man who doesn't have a das kitzara, who doesn't have a feeble mind, who doesn't have this limited capacity to be able to understand what to do, he should make the bracha and then he should light. And this is how it's codified in the poskim. This is how it's codified in Shemir Shabbos Kehilchasa. All the modern day poskim say that that's why there's an afkamina for when women light versus when men light. And that's why when I sent that email and it was being flipped to David and I told him, this is what you should do, strike match, make bracha, light, voila, and it's done, that taka is the halacha for men. But the halacha for women is first light, drop the match, put your hands over the candles, close your eyes. That's also part of the protocol of not benefiting. Make the bracha, remove your hands, benefit from the light. So you see, it's a totally different protocol based upon this svara. So I don't have a piece from this. I don't have a sense of menuchas hanefesh from this distinction, because nashenu hachashuvot, our very chashuva women who are very well educated and are perfectly capable of understanding the principles, and are not da'atan kitzara, do not have this feebleness or this ADD that the Aruch HaShulchan seems to be describing. And I know plenty of men who do have ADD, and try to explain this to them, and they would say, I'd rather do like my wife. So I'm going to suggest al pi drush, a metaphysical explanation, which you're certainly free to depart at this point, because now we're up to the drush aspect of trying to understand this halacha. And I say that there's tremendous value in reading all about Rebbetzin Bela Falk and showing and having this tremendous awe and respect for this Isha Hatzadekes, the Eishes Chayil of the Drisha. But also I want to just point out something quite fascinating. I've always understood the Mishnah in Pirkei Avos in Perek Aleph, which says, that quotes Yosef ben Yochanan in Yerushalayim. He says, "V'al tarbes sicha im ha'isha." Do not converse excessively with a woman. And the Mishnah clarifies and says, "Be'ishto amru kal v'chomer be'eshes chavero." And this is not only true with your friend's wife, but it's true even with your own wife. You shouldn't speak excessively with a woman. And Mikan Amru Chachamim, and the Chachamim therefore said, this is in source 12 in your sheets, that if a person speaks excessively with a woman, he's going to cause evil to befall himself. He will abstain from Torah study, and he will eventually inherit Gehenna. And the question, of course, is, what's wrong with speaking to your wife? Speak to your wife. The biggest problem that we have today is that we're so busy texting and looking at the news that we never get a chance to speak to our wives or our kids. So why shouldn't we speak to our wives? So I've always understood, and I believe that it's what this halacha is trying to convey, that the difference between men and women is that men live in the olam ha'asiyah, to quote the language of the Zohar. Men live in the world of action, and women live in the olam hadibur, and women live in the world of the spoken word. That's why women are patur from mitzvahs aseh shezman grama. There's a whole subclass of mitzvahs that women are patur from, because their religious expression or spiritual expression is not best accomplished through asiyah, through action, but rather through the expression of ideas. And therefore, what Chazal are telling us is that it's not proper to engage in conversation with a woman because her whole mode of spiritual expression is through speech. And that's not your mode of expression. Your mode of expression is through physical demonstration, actions, bringing people into your home, which is the connection to what the other things that Yosef ben Yochanan says at the beginning of the Mishnah. V'yonim b'nei veisecha. What is that connection to Val tarbasicha im ha'isha? Do not speak excessively with a woman. What do the things have to do with each other? The answer is because your wife expresses her spirituality not by inviting people into the house. That's your job. Because you're the man of the Olam Ha'asiyah. That's your job. And the Zohar in source number 13 from Parshas Mishpatim talks about that it's not by coincidence that Chava was the one. Chava's sin was through Dibur. Chava's sin began through speech. And therefore the Zohar says, he says, Toch hazi deles b'chol kalin denoshin de'alma di'achla kala dechivi listabakaba. That he says that and I won't go through the whole Zohar, we don't have time, but the voice of the serpent, or of the Satan, or of the Yetzer Hara, can attach itself to the voice of the woman, because the voice of the woman is the thing that has the greatest potential for Kedusha, and therefore the voice of the Nachash can attach itself to the voice of the woman and bring her down. That's why women's conversation can either be the sweetest and most holy, or it can be the most degraded and the most Lashon Hara-laden kinds of speech that actually cause tremendous harm in the world. Because God creates a balance in the world, so that because of the great potential for great spiritual elevation in a woman's speech, also contains those very same potential for great spiritual destruction and terrible damage. And so, as a result, when we talk about the whole concept of a woman being makabel Shabbos through her dibur, because the very moment that she says lahadlik ner shel Shabbos, she's expressing her acceptance of Shabbos in the way that is most propitious for a woman, which is not through the act of hadlaka, but is rather through the dibur of the bracha. And that's why the Maharil felt that regardless of the fact that she knows that she's got a light, but her lighting is secondary to the dibur of Shabbos, which is the Maisa, which is the act of making the bracha. And that's why, perhaps, I'm just saying the Torah's Efsher, that's why the minhag originates in this way, not like the Aruch HaShulchan is suggesting, that Nasham Daitan Kitsara, because women are feeble-minded or women have ADD, and therefore they're not capable of making a Tanai like this, but rather because it is the very essence of what womanhood is all about, to express your spiritual status through your words and not through your actions. And that's why the bracha, if it were to be said before you lit, would be a de facto automatic acceptance of Shabbos. That's what I'm offering as a B'Torah's Efsher. I don't know whether it's emes or not. It could also just be that this is an anachronistic halacha that dates back to a time where there was great illiteracy among women. That's certainly possible, but if that's the case, then how can we justify it today? But again, I digress. I want to leave you with that thought, and perhaps you can do something with it.